Hello and welcome to South Beach Sessions. I'm legitimately thrilled about this one, and not for the reasons this guy thinks, I don't think. I'm a fan of his general way. He is doing it differently. He's a football coach, and he's made the Dolphins a little more successful than they were, but his personality seems not only unusual, but authentic in a way that suggests real leadership. I'm happy to have you in town. I've loved the way that you've carried yourself. And now the pressure starts. You got to win playoff games because it's been a joyride for 2 seasons as the whiz kid, and people have all sorts of questions now about you.
The pressure starts? Yeah, I like to meet the delusional folk that got to have this job and have 2 years where they didn't think they had pressure.
I don't envy how lopsided the sport makes you guys, because it seems to me like you want to live a full and balanced life, and then you also have this passion that probably eats a good 80 hours a week out of your brain power.
Yeah, it's similar to the path of many American or human, is that there's certain things that you can't control. So you do have to understand that you can do the job the right way. You can do to the best of your abilities, and things can't work out, and you have to be okay with that. It is all encompassing. There are a lot of people that have opinions based upon your success or failure, and you have a part in that, but it's definitely a team that decides that. But I wouldn't shed too many tears. It is public. It's rough, but it's not that different than many people experience life, where there's things that you can't control that you are subject to.
Oh, but I've always found fascinating in your line of work that there are things you can't control, but by nature you guys are control freaks. And then you plan and you plan and you plan, and then somebody fumbles or something happens out there that is out of your control. To me, it's the great exasperation of what you do for a living, that you would be passionately obsessed to the lopsided detriment of your life, and then you get out there on Sunday and everything you did is out of your control.
No, I think that it's one of the greater challenges to lead in this scope or in this way at this time in the world. I think there's a lot of things that are drawing you to become a control freak, that are drawing you into experiencing your experience first and foremost above all others. But there's the caveat of the position, is that you're head coach that has the ability to really influence a lot of people's lives. You are by nature the job is servitude, and so you should be serving others. I think the challenge that is not deep diving into your own personal experience and how the outcomes affect you is also what what you sign up for, is to be a head coach of and influence the lives of other people in a positive way. So for me, the pressure, all of it, is part of the job. And I think part of the challenge is to let go of the control, is to be a teammate, is to properly empower teammates with things, and really have all your teammates being uplifted with autonomy, with things that they have to call their own. It's such a farce to over control and over try to regulate what's going on within an NFL organization, because truth be told, you're vulnerable to their work. Don't get delusioned. It is not you. It is the accumulation of everyone. So
that's not what leadership looked like in your world 20 years ago. That's not what you grow up learning from. The idea of that job is service. Leadership isn't, hey, you follow me. It's how can I help?
Yeah, I think, fortuitously enough, I didn't come from any scope of background of leadership. I got to witness it organically, of what was effective and what was not. There was no one in my family had tremendous amount of power in any of their jobs. They hadn't, for my family, hadn't gone to college yet. We have a couple family members that have graduated college now besides me, but overall, I think, I knew from my first conscious memory that the things that I would view, that I would aspire to be, hopefully one day, I didn't look the part by nature anyway. So I was going to have to be unique and different. Different was, I attached to greatness. I saw Michael Jordan and I guess when I was a little older, Tiger Woods, but any supreme athlete of my Bo Jackson and all of my.
What do you mean your first conscious memory? Loving sports you're talking about?
Just my conscious memory of myself. My conscious memory of myself was loving sports, and was also, I wanted to be a head coach of a NFL football team since I was like 5 years old. So,
what the hell is that?
I don't know, obsessive compulsiveness as a 5-year-old. It was probably unique. There were a couple of years after I was 5 that I spent time thinking about being an architect or something. But
probably unique. I don't think there are a lot of 5-year-olds who was there a coach you had modeled there? I did not.
No, there wasn't.
You imagined yourself as a 5-year-old leading football players as the head coach.
Yes, I was tied to an idea that my mom predisposed in me, which was that I was special, that I could be great. And then along the way, I started to notice that my will and my drive could get me to places that, if I would have. Basically, I learned at a young age that if I was overambitious and I had big dreams, even if I didn't realize them, I would maximize myself. And so the biggest dream that I could come up with as a 5-year-old in Greeley, Colorado, was be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. And so from that moment on, I'm recognizing that nothing about myself is really, there's not a ton of similarities that I'm seeing people doing that job and living in that world and leading people, but there's fragments of things that you pick up that you notice that are kind of like your personality. And then you for me, I just kind of thought about, well, theoretically, if you could help anyone achieve their hopes and dreams, and you could convince them as such, they don't really care about the way you look or the way you talk or the way that, and the more that you could add value to people's lives and show them that you have valuable things to contribute to their lives, it can look any way that you want it.
I have 1,000 follow-up questions. Your ambition as a 5-year-old being extreme, where else did it reveal itself? You said it was showing up all over the place, because that's super unusual what you're talking about there.
I brought it up before, and I'm never able to do it quite justice, but there's a moment in third grade that was a game changer for how I approached all of life, and something that provides residuals to this day. It was, piggybacking on, I had a single mom that was building me up all the time and saying I was so great at anything, any little thing I did was unbelievable, and I could be. And I started to buy into that. Your
best cheerleader, giving you confidence,
then I'm in first grade, and maybe not the most popular kid in the class or whatever, and you're trying to digest the world. The world was my mom before, but now the world says that I'm maybe not that, or giving me reasons to think that I'm not that. Not being the. My mom said that I was so cute. Why don't the girls love me? Those types of things.
You're not fitting in exactly.
Total. Not the way that I kind of saw myself through my mom's eyes. And then third grade, there's a multiplication test that's like a timed 100 question deal. And I really wanted to, get 100% and finish first. I wanted to be the best in class. Well, there was someone that along the way that I noticed that was better at math than me, Stephanie Call. She was like, she also happens to be like 8 inches taller than me, and just dominating math. And I could tell she was better at it than me. But then this one day we have this test, and I say, no.
Not today, Stephanie.
I'm going to win this test in my head. No, I am the best. And I just decided to mimic what my mom had told me blindly, even though I knew it not to be the case. I ignored that, whatever, that narrative within your mind. And sure enough, I won the test, the whole competitive finish within the time, who can get 100. I won. And I was like, that was the light bulb. That if I could, that you can will yourself out of fearlessness to outperform people that are more talented than you, simply because you have something inside you that you can control, that can help you succeed where others fail, or you can, and that for me transformed the rest of my life.
I don't know what you regard as the most interesting parts of your path, but tell me just how unlikely it is, with whatever details it is you wish to choose from your childhood, how being with a single mother who was working 6.5 out of 7 days a week, how unlikely it is to get to Yale and get to your dreams coaching an NFL football team from wherever it is you were.
Yeah. It's wild to think in those terms. Yeah, I would say the percentages are pretty low, and I think it's interesting. You have the two things that go on, especially when you talk about your own childhood. You have your experience at the time, and then as you reflect, that are quite different a lot of times. And there's so much of who I became were results of I don't know, solving the problems that every kid has. Those problems are monumental to me, and manifest themselves in the way I just go about life in general. But being a cool kid at school was a big deal, and it didn't come easy to me. Having friends, I didn't know why at the time. I was chasing a lot of popularity in elementary school, middle school, and high school. And I just remember always trying to, as I grew up and I started figuring out some of those I don't know, conundrums, or those life obstacles. I think I was constantly trying to changing schools from 6th grade to 7th grade, moving from Greeley to Denver, going from a 70,000 person town to metropolitan Denver, was a big moment in my life, and I spent my 7th grade year. I found a friend early, Dan Soder, who's the comedian, and we kind of hung out together and kind of navigated the waters. But I was really trying to figure out how I could
still not fitting in before then. Still feeling a bit, still not fitting in, not being cool. But now you've got a friend, a little lonely.
Yeah, a little lonely. But then my personality is kind of changing. I'm starting to try to be funny all the time, and at the time, I remember thinking that I wouldn't ever want people to feel like they were better off if I wasn't there. So like I'd want to be, if I was invited somewhere, I'd want to be the life of the party and add value. I can remember feeling that way, and those types of obstacles, or me being driven by that way. But
inauthentically, right? If you're seeking popularity, it's not just by being yourself. You're seeking a reward.
Right, seeking the reward. And at the time, these were for a person that doesn't model his personality off after anybody, that never really had someone to kind of model themselves after, and you're kind of figuring out who you are and what works. And I just know this driving force is so that people want to be around me. And so those things, figuring out how to do that and being able to be successful in that scope, with that vision, with that objective for to belong, and doing that, trial and error, and when you're young, your world is, when you're 13, the world's only existed for 13 years, so a month is a bigger deal.
It's interesting, though, that you're choosing popularity. Like, you're not going to didn't have money, and you're saying didn't have someone to model myself after, but you're not sinking into the idea that dad wasn't around. You're just saying all I wanted was popularity because it would allow me to fit someplace.
And the funny is, I had people always ask me about dad not being around and how that affected me. And if you would have asked me, I would have, with 100% conviction, told you it didn't matter when I was young. Only, I kind of tie this desire to belong and I know, chasing people wanting me around. In hindsight, as I've been older, it probably was driven from, that lack of acceptance that you experience when you're void of a parent on their own choosing in your mind. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you blame yourself for it and you question your worth. Like, did I run them off? Especially during formative years like that, when you don't know anything about. You want to be an NFL head coach, but you don't know how other things are going to impact you.
But the reason I bring up popularity, the reason I bring that up is because it was something that was ever present from, I want to say when I moved to Denver in 7th grade on. And at no time could I reason with why that was the case. Maybe because my mom said I was cool when I was little, but
and may have been overcompensating too, to just, like, she was probably afraid, just generally afraid, and so let me help boost him as much as I can, even if I have to feign strength.
Right, but it wasn't. But I've since attached all of those things to kind of my, I don't think it's ironic that there's things that a team sport provides, being a part of a team, being a part of a, outside my grandparents on my mom's side, I wasn't really close with a lot of my family, so I had a very, very small family, and I was, trying to embody, as a head coach, you get to kind of right the wrongs, so to speak. You get to be the dad of a team. You get to right the wrongs of, I didn't have a dad in my life that was someone that I could call dad, but I sure could be a great dad. and I think there's some ties to my professional ambition, team, subsequently, there's a whole list, a laundry list of things that I've since been able to kind of reason where this drive, where this focus, this obsession that I've had my whole life, where that came about, and it starts and stops with the most the most foundational elementary pillars that coincide to who we are those nuclear relationships and how they manifest themselves in your life.
It's a super unusual way that you coach. Are you an empath? Like, I don't know whether there's a clinical diagnosis for this, but are you an empath?
Yeah, I've been anointed as such by people in the energy field, and I've been convinced kind of as such. I kind of it's funny. I had heard that phrase. I was kind of I'm typically an open-minded person, but I didn't deep dive into the world of energy. And then once, there's an esthetician that my wife was working with that met with me when I was in California. I kind of took advantage of I try to take advantage of the world that's around me. And in California, there's a lot of energy talk. And, that she was overtaken by like my presence in the room, and, started talking to me, kind of opened my eyes to something that, is a part of me. I guess it'd be appropriate to describe me as an empath because of all the energy that I'm absorbing and giving out on a daily basis.
You are energetically trying to help people find a better path to their optimal success and the things they want through servitude, and you're energetically trying to connect with them in ways that are, I don't, at the height of what you do for a living, I don't know if it can feel spiritual, but in there somewhere would be purpose.
It very much does. I am drowning in purpose. Drowning has negative connotation. If purpose is oxygen, it is breathing through me on a daily basis. This is how this studio was built. You have to be the best listener that I've ever encountered.
Thank you.
The stuff you just shot back at me.
Well, I'm super curious about the roots of who you are because I haven't seen a team coached this way, and I haven't heard a coach talk this way because. Yeah. It's pushing down of feelings. It's repressing of feeling. It's covering up feelings. It's toughing through your feelings. Your feelings don't matter. And you're sitting here saying, no, I kind of care that my linebacker likes music. And
yeah, I think to be your best self, you have to be yourself. I really believe that. I think there's different. To truly maximize each individual, how silly does it? Like, this blows my mind when you start talking about the psychology of performance, and you start to talk about how how great people do anything great and where they put their mind and what they're focused on in a professional setting. If I'm creating an environment where people are spending time trying to guess as to the way I want them to present themselves to me. That's the orchestration of not being in a place you can't be yourself.
A lot of wasted energy too.
And that blows my mind, that short circuits about how much opportunity cost that is. When you're doing one thing, you're not doing another. And when you're trying to...
It's really inefficient.
It's crazy. And we're talking about being able to focus on certain... Being focused... to be able to focus on the right things and to hear coaching in general, and to be able to focus on what you need to do to ensure that your dream of your life can be, fulfilled. Oh, by the way, spend half your time trying to figure out the way I want you to act.
No, I can't imagine.
And that's impossible.
I just can't imagine how someone like Odell Beckham, for example, who has been punished for his authenticity in an assortment of ways publicly, how he arrives at your doorstep and then your recruiting pitch to him on like, no, we're going to work to help you here so that we maximize the best you, because I understand how hard it is to do what you do through all of the injuries and everything, how hard it is to be as great as you've been.
No, and so you go into the avenue of scars, and that's what that fits within. Like, how long does it take someone to get over scars that they have? You're conditioned to experience, you go to a football meeting and you have a certain mindset. A lot of these guys that have had unbelievable success have had it with coaches that were favorable to the journey and without them, and all in between. And for me, when players get into our building, like, I think our coaching staff and the whole building does a great job of this, but like understanding that they're carrying the weight of all those scars, those expectations, those that you think is true, and then, oh, by the way, it's not this way here for a specific reason. There's a lot of resistance, a lot of like, is this a setup?
They don't trust it. This is a nurturing environment. This is football as a nurturing environment. Like you're not coddling them. There are expectations involved, but the fact that you care about their feelings at all, I think, is unusual. I don't think coaches are supposed to care about.
No.
Eric Spoelstra says all the time that I'm not there. It's not. I don't care whether they like me or not. That's not the job.
No, and it's more for them. Let's say that we have the gift of the best things that a player could hear if you're playing professional football. We have these pieces of gold that are coaching points. If players understand that gold and understand your intentionality, where your intent lies, they're going to allow us to give them that gold that much faster and with that much more conviction and clarity. I think if you had, to me, I want to take out all of the unnecessary, quite literally bullshit that people have accumulated through their journeys to get there, and just let's make it about, I can help you with these things. Listen to what those things, focus on those things, focus on nothing else, and then watch your game improve. And those, to me, that's more of the way of the modern day athlete that has more individual training, that has more club exposure, that has more knowledge of and more scope of what should be done. Let's show them that we can give them the best tools.
You're basically saying, I'll meet you where you are. You don't have to come over here trying to guess where I am.
And I mean, the modern day player also has something that I don't think anybody is bringing any sort of sensitivity towards, and that's uncharted micromanagement of their careers by, the social media and how that one person's voice or one person's negative take on who you are and what you're doing, how that can spiral people. Now magnify it by 50 million. There is so much noise that is just like the noise that I had when I was a third grader, and I recognized that Stephanie Cole was better than me. But I had the tools to block out the noise. That's what you're trying to give them in a professional football setting, is a place that all of those things are true in terms of how I try to be a human being, for them to understand where I'm coming from, to best engender a teacher-student relationship. But also, it's also very demanding. If you ask any of our veteran players about how we practice, I put, we practice like it's a game at all times, as best we can within the rules of the CBA. So
I didn't accuse you of being soft. Nobody out here isn't saying that you guys
but
aren't
that's why
working
people don't
hard.
do it. People don't do it because they misconstrue individual relationships and investing in people as a sort of softness, that we're just trying to find a different level of coach to player relationship that can access deeper dives and fuller commitment than other places can. It's less that you are accusing and more like by nature. I always have to stipulate that because it does of just preconceived notions of what it is to, let's just have a human being relationship. What if you had an asset in the world? What if you're a 5-star athlete and from the age 16 and on, you've been exploited by every person that knows you, and you make millions of dollars now, and so you have even fewer people that give a shit about your experience, but that is real. What if you have a teammate in that process? What can that take? Your game, your life, all of that,
Can you explain to me the extremes of your obsession when you say obsessed? Like, how often is it actually are plays creeping into your sleep? Like, what are some of the examples you can give people to say, you don't understand how obsessed I am with all of this?
Well, so I have to, there's also something I recognize that's balance, that you do have to balance your life out, and that's 100% what my wife and daughter do for me. And so I have to personally create periods of time where I refuse to think about anything football. And if I do it on the front end,
being present with your family, and you can't be consumed by something else, the love at home will call you on.
And I can't. So in those times, I can't watch documentaries. Okay, that's a whole other caveat.
It's a distraction.
Because that will get me back to a professional thought, and I'm just.
So family time is 100% family time as ordered by you and the family, as best for you and your life.
And I try to hold. There's a lot of guilt that comes into being obsessed professionally when you're so motivated by having a family and being a father to my daughter Ayla. So doing that, I can cut out all the family time and I can be myself, which is myself is always thinking about how I can grab something outside the box and apply it to what I'm doing professionally, which is that I get the honor to serve the Miami Dolphins organization as the head coach and serve the fan base and all that stuff. And it if it's not family time, it doesn't go away. Plays on numerous occasions. I'll wake up at midnight and I'll utilize my iPhone notes app and write the most random things that has one catchphrase that it'll get me back to that point.
What has Katie, your wife, taught you about love?
She's taught me how to love someone that loves you, you don't. She really taught me what it was like to be loved. Everybody, you feel the love of nuclear family, of things that you sign up for. You feel what you think is to be loved when you're in relationships, as you go in your life. But then there's, I didn't realize what it was like to be loved until it felt unconditional, which, there needed to be some adversity for that opportunity to present itself. And, I've talked about it a bunch, but, some of the seeing the having my wife look at me and love me after, failure, a disappointer or whatever. There's been much written about when I got sober. That was probably the last time that I've really let her down. But feeling someone love you unconditionally and actually love you for your successes and failures, that has taught me how to love in life, not just her, but just people in general, to not look at your actions as conditional based upon other people's actions, and how to give the love that, listen, I'm in the midst of living a dream that I've had since I can remember. And there's a lot of gratitude that comes with that. And where do you pour that into? Well, you pour that into the love that you have for the world that exists that can put you in this position, and then you pour it out into people, even if it doesn't, they're not going to give it to you back. Those types of life lessons I think the actions that I take on a day-to-day basis, there's a lot of love that I exude when I do that, and I didn't understand that until we got deep into my wife and I's relationship, not just on the front end, but you go through things that people go through.
I want to talk about your sobriety, but she's described the job as lonely and anxious because of your job. So it's your dream, and she's supporting your dream, but it takes her husband away, mentally away. And yes, you've got your errands and your honey-do list, but it takes you away. Your dream takes you away.
It really does. She was blown away. I'm 3 days into, our one summer break, where I get away from work. As a head coach after the season, you're dealing with a lot of things that has to do with people's jobs moving forward, whether that's within the organization as a player or as a coach or as a player. And she was like jaw dropped the other night, I think Thursday night, the day of my the last day of work, before at the very front end of our break, and I was just going to do levels playing with some Paw Patrol toys, and she was like, "Where'd you find this energy?" It's work, huh? And until that moment where I can file work away, I can't even manifest myself as a father to the degree that I can when it's 100% on them. It is all encompassing. She even brought light to that when she was digesting my out of control new dad behavior. you know,
just dad away from work for a little while. You can concentrate without the daily stresses. I mean, it's just a perpetual responsibility, energy pull. There's always a problem to fix, right?
Yeah.
Like
that's the job. The job is not to avoid problems. Yeah, you're talking about 150 people directly.
It's to find them and fix them.
Yeah, and that's what your role is, and you know that. I thought I knew that. I'd been given such a grand tutorial by being, you know, Kyle Shanahan's right-hand man for so long and watching him do it and then watching all my peers get the jobs. And, you know, I had a very concrete, very great scope of what the job is. But until you're in it, you don't really understand quite literally problems can't dictate your energy. Otherwise you will have no energy.
It's whack-a-mole. There will always be more problems.
Who are people going to go to if they don't go to you for problems? You are the solution finder. So it is ever present for that as well, because you're the second that good things are happening, it's hilarious. Every time that, my wife will let me know that things are pretty positive, just in the mediascape. Like, my knee-jerk reaction is, all right, where's the problem coming? Something's bad's going to happen. There's problems all the time, and I think where I'm at, in this being my third year, it's really cool to have a idea on job of what it is to be successful at it, and to be able to lean into those things that you think you're capable of being. It's hard to bring positive energy to people all the time when people are constantly bringing you negative things. But if, I never got into this field trying to be like, hopefully I can be a head coach, or hopefully, my ambitions are much grander. I want to win multiple Super Bowl trophies, and ultimately that results in me being able to be in a gold jacket wearer. Those things are grand. Okay, well, I better be good at handling problems. All right, I'm going to continue to get better at being the guy that people both shovel problems towards, but then expect positive energy pushed towards them. And I'm capable of doing that because I've got better at assembling people around me, and the people that have been around me, on top of some of the added individuals within the organization, were able to facilitate that, because I am definitely a product of the cumulative work of many individuals, and it is tricky, but Mom and Ayla, they definitely notice when it's 100%. All of my problems are that bedtime is too early, and we need to be able to watch more movies and not play as much, or do the math arithmetic that Dad's bestowing upon.
I can't imagine what the last 3 years have been like for you, because those are two seismic life events, to arrive at your dreams, and also after tribulation, finally being able to welcome your daughter into the world.
Right. No, it was funny because I had finally earned the opportunity to, be a big part of what we did in San Francisco from a coaching perspective, and, the players that I was able to touch, and the responsibility given to me from game planning and all that stuff. And we were the Saturday before we left to Miami for for the Super Bowl, a week before that Super Bowl that was a paramount implications to my entire career. That's when we found out that we were pregnant, or that Katie was pregnant. I was not pregnant.
You were adjacent. You were adjacent to the proceedings.
Adjacent.
Yeah.
And, I think it would be, you're chasing things for so long, and they could be considered overwhelming responsibilities. For me, they're the greatest gifts that I've ever been given, all at once. And fortunately, I've been preparing who I am as a man to be a father my whole life, and who I am as a professional to be a head coach. So I it came all at once in terms of gigantic things within my life, but I felt like I'd been working tirelessly to be ready for it, so it's definitely unique, but I think I'm also looking at it like that. I'm very fortunate that I feel like I'm capable to execute both jobs at a high level. So, because for me, in both circumstances, there's no going back. That you don't get second chances, and the last thing I want to do is live in regret in either one. So,
I love the idea of fatherhood as a job. A job I perform at a high level, like coaching. That you're giving yourself good grades on fatherhood because you're making sure to be present. And I don't know what you're taking from your own childhood that you had that you're applying here, and that you didn't have that you're making sure to apply here.
Well, I think like most people, you work hard at identifying what your parents do well to replicate that, and then it's very easy to find the things that you were without as motivating factors to parent. I get the I had so many things to. For me, I was spending my whole childhood in the positive and the optimistic world that my mom created, and that is so powerful. Just in the journey of life.
She conjured the positive, right? It's not necessarily that it was that positive. She was just bringing it to life verbally and in her daily actions.
Right, which and for me, in retrospect, that is a prime example of you can spin anything into what you want it to be. Our lights were turned off. We didn't have barely any money. I was at home from first. There was large stretches of time where I'd be home to fend for myself when can afford child care, and that space between I need to work this much but I can put you in child care for this long. Dad wasn't around. We didn't have much, and I had no idea because of what she chose to focus on. And I remember getting cool shoes when I got straight A's on my report card. I didn't know that she had to save up to do that. So I think overall that life lesson was implied with what she chose to focus on, because I started realizing some of the hurdles that I'd overcome that I didn't know were hurdles. When I was in my late teenage years, kind of figuring all this stuff out. That is something that I think Katie and I we talked at length about. When we had plenty of time to really plan for our child, considering we kind of thought it was a dream lost over 5 years since we started. And then by that time, we were so elated to have this miracle that we were ultra positive when she was pregnant. There wasn't we didn't get into one fight, trying to create something that, we had a vision for, that, I had no experience on how proper parental relationships should really be portrayed to a child. She had a little more knowledge and history. I love her parents, and she had a great childhood, but we were able to apply that positivity from the second that she was in her stomach. Those things I think are super important.
This child will be surrounded by love, a united love. From the moment it's conceived, the energy around this child will be a positive, warm, loving one.
And to me, the one thing that I've observed is everybody, you have no idea the consequences of any sort of actions, and but there's one thing that I've noticed as kind of like a litmus test on whether or not parents have done their job or not, and me, it being non-negotiable that I right the wrongs that I'd experienced. I just wanted our daughter to know that unconditionally she is the most important thing in the world to two people. And I think if you're able, to me, that gave me a fighting chance in the world because I had won. But that idea that you are the most important thing to someone beyond consequence and beyond condition, that gives you the ability to fight through your journey of life and to not give in to the world that does a great job of trying to break you down.
You mentioned your sobriety. You've been sober since 2016. Mm-hmm. What were you, I've read you say, I was running away from problems, but that's where you left it. What were you running away from?
Well, so there's this weird part of me that was there's a lot of things that I didn't want to acknowledge based upon, that when you come from nothing, being ungrateful is really off-putting. And I was so grateful to be in the NFL, but then I wasn't still, there was things that were bothering me that I didn't want to, with my career, with where I was, whether it was very minuscule or monumental, I just didn't, I'd been passed up. The opportunities weren't really there, but then at the same time, I was still a coach in the National Football League. I should be happy. If it's taking longer than it should for me to ascend in the profession, who cares? And not allowing myself to even think about anything negative. Instead, let me just forget about anything negative. Not understanding the process of everything doesn't always have to be positive, but it's a positive experience jumping in and living into your problems, because I was avoiding all problems, and that's not the sauce. That's not plausible, nor is it realistic, nor is it, you have to have problems to have.
Well, it's not healing either. Avoidance isn't healing.
So it was, it was much of that, and realizing that you could, the second that you started to get a little tipsy, then none of those problems existed anymore, and then I'll figure out the issues later. Those types of things. I needed that next step of maturation, of understanding how to be a positive, how to still maintain my positivity towards life while acknowledging the things that can and should bring you down.
Well, how does this one work, though? So are you sad because you're wildly ambitious and not arriving at the things that you want to arrive at? Or are you also just depressed, or things are making you feel depressed and now you're throwing lighter fluid or the depressant of alcohol all over them because you're not totally aware of whether it's the job that's costing the sadness or whether it's just sadness?
That's I think it's the greater fear of, what do I have to do to be, like, for me, the professional moment that was bringing me down was also a professional triumph, so to speak. Like, that, if you put me next to all the people that I grew up with, and that's, I have a lot to feel great about. Not being able to figure out why I was down was scary. It's scary when you're like, can I be happy? And I think, that it kind of perpetuates on itself and becomes a bigger thing, when in reality, I think it was just such an eye-opener that, and a relief, that, hey, you can two things can coexist. You can be overall very grateful for your life and simultaneously be unhappy with certain things about your life. Just that was a huge epiphany for me, because I was such an extreme person, and thinking that it was all one thing or the other, that had been, how and realistically, I kind of looked back, and all of my time, went all the way till probably my freshman year of college. I've been kind of in a pattern, handling things that would come my direction that I didn't want to be a part of the equation, or didn't want to handle. I'd just kind of diving into, I guess I would be presently getting intoxicated to party out the problems, and then I'd have a good time and find value in that, and never address anything that was kind of weighing on me. Then I'd, in my extreme personality, once I found the better way of the world, which was not running from problems, but hitting them head on, then I kind of became addicted to that.
Do you remember the details on how you identified it as a dependency? Because I imagine you didn't think it was a dependency until you thought it was a dependency.
Well, I kind of knew once there wouldn't be a day that would go by that I wouldn't have at least a couple beers. I kind of knew that was a problem. And then I kind of just kept it to myself, ignored the fact that I deep down knew that I had a problem. And then when the problem surfaced, I couldn't hide it anymore, and it was in front of my professional world, and I had to come to grips with it. It forced me kind of to figure out, okay, well, is this, I need to deep dive into what is going on, because I'm sabotaging myself.
You were late, right? You were late, or you were let go because you were late to
those were parts of the journey. I fixed was never late again once I had a career hiccup with the timeliness of it. But then it was people catching that I had alcohol in the office and was drinking on nights that no one would be drinking. It was that. It was like really finding my zest, that zest for life that I couldn't find because I was ignoring what was bringing me down. And it wasn't like one thing, it was how you handled all problems. All of those things, that zest, I would find with alcohol, and then I had to kind of come to grips with, okay, what am I doing, and why am I doing that? And originally, I had a feeling that I wasn't addicted to alcohol itself. I was addicted to the results of it. And so I just deep dove into problems, got such a, I don't know, so much weight was taken off my shoulders, and, you know, saying that I knew early, probably in the first week, that I could not drink again like I told my wife I wouldn't, because it was, I just need to retool how I approach life, and not just the good stuff, the more meaningful stuff, the stuff that you have to get over, the stuff that you have to, having a problem. That quite literally 3 weeks after I got sober, I had a new problem. I was passed over again for the position coach job in Atlanta to work with Julio Jones the year we went to the Super Bowl. And that it was an immediate example of me being able to manifest this new way to look at things. And sure enough, there was a couple career, there was a couple and things that I was able to bring to the team's table on how we teach certain things, and kind of had instituted a yak tape that off season that we really leaned into, and kind of an orchestration of how to coach it. Found all these professional, like, new levels of success within the profession, even though I didn't get the job by the formula that I was kind of already laying out. All the epiphanies that had hit me, you know, it was one of those moments that you really have to look yourself in the eye and figure out, what do you want to be? And, you know, I had to talk to my 5-year-old self and not do wrong by him. You know, everything that I'd worked for, it was very therapeutic, very deep dive, and you know, it's something I'm really proud of, just because I understand how it could have gone a different way, for sure.
You need the results, obviously, but it sounds like confidence is a real thing for you. You've learned to believe in yourself. You've learned to do it your way. You've learned to be authentically yourself, because it's the easiest thing to be consistently day to day.
Well, it also helps me bridge the gap of, there's also the point that you brought up early, which was like, there's only so much you can control. So much of what I do now, acknowledging things that are difficult and doing things the right way, and that's how I keep score. And certain things that I understand more than ever why people aren't themselves, the risk inherently that there is towards that, why people, you know, some of the things that I choose to very intentionally do things in a different manner that I've ever observed. That's because I know them to be right, and I know why people don't go outside their comfort zone. I know why people don't lean into their own personality. And I do recognize that I've been gifted a platform where hopefully I can encourage more people to do.
What a huge wisdom to have. Like, forgive me for interrupting you, but to be resolute in your conviction of I'm doing this the right way. I mean,
and it's very, you're doing it for all the correct reasons, understanding all the implications as best you can, and that is so much. And there's times that the result won't mirror, and you have to be okay with that.
It's got to be process, not result. I mean,
it has to be.
Your players can get injured. Like, come on, it's a violent sport, and and your whole defense can be out when you're headed to Kansas City. And come on, a lot of things can happen.
And then on top of that, it doesn't. I've realized so much of my job is everyone else doing their job and who those people are, and identifying really, really good human beings that I think, I'm so proud of the coaching staff that we have in 2024, and so proud of the organization where it's at. All of these things I've learned on the job of, you want to talk about humility, I'm only as good as everybody I work with. And across the board, I think there's a bunch of people in place that really take advantage of the opportunity they have working with me and make me right for, how I delegate and how I try to empower and all those things. And, they have to see the reasons. Really, you just have a bunch of people living out your hopes and dreams, pressing forth what you believe to be the best thing to do, and being able to live with that for the rest of your life. This is something I've built up. This has been the life dream, sole focus of my entire existence. You don't want regrets.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate your vulnerability. And I will tell you again that I appreciate your way of being. You've given us a lot of time, so I will just get you out of here in a couple of rapid fire questions. Can you tell me, please, about your senior thesis at Yale?
Okay, senior thesis was the maturation of the National Football League in the 1960s. So I did it had to be primary source at Yale as a history major. One of your course credits is a year-long independent topic, a year-long deep dive, primary source thesis on whatever topic you're passionate about. For me, since I knew I was going to be into coaching, I wanted it to be time well spent, and I spent time, looking at primary source articles and the Beinecke Library, covering the National Football League from the early 1950s all the way through the early 1970s, and found out so much what I already thought I knew. One of the biggest things was I to learn all the positive things that were occurring by work of Al Davis in the 60s. I was a Denver Bronco fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I just knew the Raiders, and I just hated the Raiders.
You'd appreciate Al Davis's renegade spirit of doing it differently.
Well, but then how the Super Bowl comes about, and then from the Super Bowl, just where the state of the National Football League was, and then the television rights that kind of, all of a sudden, 1958, college football is king. 1970, the National Football League is king. To find out the nuts and bolts behind all that, it was a really cool process.
Tell me about Smoky Hill High School. What from your high school experience is something that is shaping you today, that is the adult you still carries around from there?
The Smoky Hill High School, it was it's probably at the time, the Centennial School District, or the Cherry Creek School District, I should say, was probably the top of the public schools, and Smoky Hill was within that. And they had so much access to all the international baccalaureate programs, all the AP programs, the opportunities that, even though I was, nobody was expecting big things coming from me, and it's not like anybody championed me during my process, but I was only able to position myself in the world the way I was because of the access of all the opportunities, and how, to me, that comes across in my teaching on a daily basis, and trying to gain the listening of a player, because that I'm trying to give them the opportunity to learn something, and maybe there's walls or barriers between us, but if I can go that extra length to give him the opportunity to access those coaching points that my expertise has found very valuable, that can allow him the opportunity to take advantage of it's ever present, the idea of opportunities, and that being an obligation, not an obligation, but that being something paramount to people's successes. And I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have access to those programs, and wouldn't be able to compete on a national level in terms of a student trying to get acceptance into a university. I would have had no shot. So that Smoky Hill, great job with your AP program. Appreciate it.
And I'm told from a Dolphin source deep in the organization that there is a love story at the center of how it is that you got the Denver Broncos start, how you got your first chance in football. Now 18 years in football, but it started where?
Okay, so obsessiveness, I think this was third grade too. I was obsessed about being a head coach. I was obsessed about beating Stephanie Call in math, right? Again,
Stephanie name dropped a third time.
And then I was obsessed with, in the summer, the Denver Broncos, their training camp was at University of Northern Colorado, which is in Greeley. 10-minute, 15-minute bike ride from my house. In the summers, instead of having childcare, the Denver Broncos practice would be my childcare. I'd get up at 7 in the morning, ride my bike there and get autographs. Well, in the third grade, I had like a box of cards, sorted by numerical order, and multiples of each player. And I'd gotten Robert Del Pino, number 39, earlier in the day, on one particular day where I was getting autographs. Saw him later in the day, and I was wearing a Charlotte Hornets fitted hat that was super loud. It was the days of Alonzo Mourning and Grandma Larry Johnson. So it was a super loud color hat, so I took the hat off, put it on a wall, ran and got the autograph so he wouldn't recognize me, so I could get a second autograph because I was a greedy
That's good work by you, though.
Got the autograph, came back, hat wasn't there, started crying. First Denver Bronco employee that came out of Lawrence Hall, which is where they stayed, grabbed him, asked him to look in the lost and found. He went, unsuccessfully returned, no hat, took down information. 2 days later, I saw the guy at Bronco camp again, brings me inside, gives me a hat with a price tag on it. He went out and bought me a hat. He was the assistant video director for the Broncos. I introduced him to my mother that night because my mom was like, who's this stranger? Or the next day, because my mom was like, who's this stranger buying you things? Which at the time I was like, what? Now I'm like, yes, I'd be very inquisitive myself. So introduced them the next day. They started dating. They got married. That's how I moved to Denver. And I became a ball boy because I was a video guy's stepchild.
Right. You fast forwarded the end part of that story, though. You really rushed through the end of it, and then they got married. I got my hat back. I stopped crying, and they got married.
Yeah, because clearly I told him to. No,
but so many more details on the
There's
hat
so
than the
many more
love.
details.
But I just asked you for the love story, and you're you told I can see the hat.
Yeah.
I can see the hat.
Well,
the love story you just fast forwarded
yeah,
through.
the love story was that
It's okay.
there was,
It's okay. You don't have to do it. Hey,
you know,
it's okay. We can move on.
I just went into, I guess, Pavlov's dog. I just went into my mode of telling that story. I've told it many times. But the love was that the love part of that story is my mom loved the hat. No, they dated for a while.
We can leave it alone. You
Yeah.
don't have to keep giving me details. I thought I was going to be able to get you to cry on Ayla. I thought there was going to be something there, but I failed. I have failed here, and now I know why. It's because you're fast forwarding through the details that are emotional for you.
No, I mean, there was a lot to cover. We have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, so it's not of your failure that we didn't cry.
Thank you. I appreciate you holding me to your bosom there and nurturing me on that one. I found your sport to be very primitive when it comes to the leadership, and so that you've learned to reach a new generation of player, and that you find yourself as an ally instead of a taskmaster. It's nice to see someone treating the labor humanely.
Wow, that was very complimentary, and I am without words. Well, thank you, though. That's it. That's probably why I have a firm professional appreciation for your show and you as a human being. That's why I'm here.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not building sandcastles.
We wore you out. You need to get back to your wife and daughter. You've spent enough time here.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah.